Yes, good morning, Johannes. Thank you for the introduction and warm good day from Tartu. And I think this is also something fascinating that in these days it's actually quite normal to have participation either way in a virtual format. So green transition, Green Deal, going green. Oftentimes what I hear, it's expensive, who is going to pay for it? And that I think is one of key angles we really need to dig in and get a good answer, because I think oftentimes people see a more glass half empty rather than half full if we talk about going green. Why it is so, I think there are a number of reasons which I also will touch upon in my intervention. But I think we first of all need to start from a real question. So where we are heading as a planet Earth, and of course the climate change is something what is real, what is happening. I'm pretty sure people in the audience don't need to be convinced in it. And of course, there is a pressing need to address it because we, the humans, are the only species who are capable of destroying the planet we live, and this also gives us a huge responsibility to make the future better for the next generations and for the planet at large. Now, I think going back to the question, it's expensive, who is going to pay for it, is also about what kind of transition we are in. And is it more of a linear? So we do incremental changes here and there. We get incrementally better day by day. Or is it more of a disruptive change, what is at play at the moment? And my very strong belief is that we are indeed facing a disruptive change, and that also implies that the old or existing trends, which were valid for a long period of time, are not necessarily predicting where and how fast we are going to move. And I think Linar gave a very good snapshot from the technology side, what is happening, how fast we are moving. And it's clear that in technology, not only in software and in the world of internet, but basically in all aspects, I think we are clearly seeing very, very disruptive technologies emerging and changes happening much faster than we do expect. Now, the second, I think, big change, if we look back to the beginning of the century, when globalization was one of driving forces also behind the innovation and scaling and integrating different parts of the world into one single interdependent economy. What we see, I think, post great financial crisis is further forces of deglobalization. So we actually see these trends which prevailed in the beginning of a century being in reverse. And if anything, COVID, Russia's war in Ukraine have just been the great accelerators. It also comes much higher competition between the great powers. We talk here about Europe, the US, and then China. And this all pushes very strongly also the innovation and the reorientation and reshaping of a supply chain. Equally, if we now come to a present day, there has been a long period of cheap money, what has, among other things, also helped the innovation to fund the the new technologies, also to fund the startup ecosystem in Estonia and elsewhere. And I think this has been certainly beneficial from that angle. A flip side of a coin, of course, is that if money has no price or is having a negative price, you get excesses here and there, and this is what we are seeing ongoing now on a global markets, which I think is further putting a pressure on the margins of a companies, is putting a pressure to go ahead faster with being more energy efficient, and again from the climate point of view, I think whenever there is a push to become more efficient, it also means that you pay attention to your environmental footprint. Equally importantly, and maybe at least for me, this is the strongest force behind the change, and that's the adaptation or changes in customer preferences. Increasingly more customers do care very seriously what is how this product or service what they buy has been delivered. So what is the environmental footprint throughout the value chain? What are the governance standards in putting this product or service together? And there have been different views about ESG impact on a society and business. I give you one example from Malaysia, where I was early last month. And at the margins of a tech conference, I spoke to a Malaysian entrepreneur who is in wood industry. So it's an SME company producing materials for making frames for windows, doors, some furniture elements, so on and so forth. So it's not a plain export of logs, but certainly with a higher value-added component. And then I asked him, so how is business going? And he said it's challenging. And it's challenging because we are increasingly asked, where do you source your timber? What is your own standards in a company in terms of labor, in terms of energy usage, in terms of your CO2 footprint? So I think these things go increasingly more into the business plans and business models of a companies, and that again is an engine behind the innovation. Now. What the governments do in Europe, but equally in US, if we look at the Repower Europe, the initiative to move faster to a greener economy, to bring back actually a significant part of manufacturing closer to home. Or if we talk about the Inflation Reduction Act in the US, they all sort of point to the same direction to push and facilitate the change in the economy. So a question, what is my environmental footprint, is increasingly pertinent for any business in any spot of a world. And again, it is certainly a question of how much you do with regulation, how much you do with different changes in consumer habits. But it's clear, in my opinion at least, that we are moving much faster to a transition to a green economy than perhaps is a mainstream thinking at the moment. And then a question what is oftentimes also asked, so we talk about investment in green technologies, and oftentimes I hear and read that this is labeled as expense or a cost. But is it? Is it actually rather an investment with return we are talking about. And I think the key point here is if we talk about that investment in green technologies is expensive, so is investment in existing technologies. If we don't invest in green, then for a just sake of example, we all need energy. Energy is a very hot topic present day because of a war. So if we don't intend to invest into green energy production, then we need to invest in business as usual, in the fossil energy production. And this is where I think the world has changed. I mean, there is a clear understanding, clear pressure. Even if you look at the major oil producing companies, number of them are actually diversifying out. If we talk about, for example, United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, they too look increasingly more how to diversify their economies and to diversify out from the fossil sources of energy. So that I think is clearly an angle we need to kind of reshape in our mindset. That if we talk about investment, when we compare the two alternatives, green and fossil, and assess what's the sort of the better social and financial return for the future. And here there are a number of studies. Just to name a few from Oxford University, IMF has recently come out with facilitating and speeding up investment into green technologies actually is going to be much more beneficial in the long term. And a bit, Linnar mentioned in his presentation that under the existing technologies, it's not so easy to achieve carbon neutrality in a digital domain. Which is precisely the point why should be far more and far faster investment in renewable energy production, which then obviously will also help to reduce the digital the CO2 footprint of a digital society. And again, if we look, for example, on the drop in price or a unit price of a levelized cost of electricity of solar panels and wind, it has been remarkable. 10 years back, levelized cost of electricity for solar panels was in the order of 300 euros per megawatt hour. So of a range what you see the market price occasionally these days in Europe. So that's basically the hurdle rate for investment. By the end of 2016, 17, 18, the price has come down to 50 euros per megawatt hour. And that is a simple explanation why investment in solar globally and including in Estonia has been booming so quickly. Then if we look at the transportation, it's very clear that for a number of reasons, but including the one which relates to the lack of truck drivers. Again, problem we face in Estonia, but problem what is common in a number of European countries is common also in US. So we will move to a stage where the trucks will be autonomously driving. There are a number of companies working on it, including NVIDIA in US. We have our own autonomous driving companies in Estonia, Overtech or Cleveron. So these are not incremental changes. These are disruptive changes in the way we operate. There is an estimate that in 24 months or 2 years from now, the comparable cars, combustion engine and electric vehicles will have roughly the same price tag. So it is becoming more affordable, and again, the transportation is a big chunk of the CO2 emissions. There will be today in the further discussions also about the hydrogen, which is clearly will be a key part in the future energy mix. And here too, there are a number of European initiatives. There is hydrogen IPCEI, which is IPCEI stands for Important Project for Common European Interest, which has softer state aid rules. And actually just end last month, the Commission approved a number of companies who will be benefiting from IPCEI. It includes 2 Estonian companies, Elcogen and Stargate. So here too, we actually are on a forefront, and it will lead to around 13-14 billion investment in Europe, public money and private money combined. Or if we look at the companies like Icosagen, which is in medtech and which actually yesterday had in Tartu here a ceremony for building the clean manufacturing site. So it's not only the innovation in a technology and science, but it's also manufacturing what is going on. So India on hydrogen, for example, they have very, very aggressive agenda to go ahead. So if we take all these elements combined, and including in a startup community here in Tartu at the startup days, which were in August, the winners actually were 2 deep tech companies. So we have been great in software engineering and increasingly more. And I think that's also because of the ecosystem what has been nurtured here, and because of capabilities, including financial capabilities, we will see increasingly more companies coming into deep tech and technology field. So that for me all concludes that we are going to see much faster transition than is perhaps mainstream expectation today. And also, if we take, for example, the electric vehicles, people oftentimes ask, yes, but what about the rare earths you need for a production of batteries? Yes, it would be an enormous challenge if we use today's technologies and if we don't do any recycling. But technologies will evolve, and the future batteries will certainly be produced in a more economical way, will be more efficient, just like it has happened with the computing power. So all these exponential changes what are happening in technology make me very strongly believe that the green transition is the opportunity, the greatest opportunity of our times, and it will all happen much faster than we perhaps think today. And of course, we can all check 3, 5, 10 years from now if what I said today actually materialized, or was it built on false expectations, and the world is going to change much slower and much less than I think it's going to be the case. This time, I hope I'm right, but the jury is still out. So I will stop here and would be very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, former Minister Sutt, still used to the fact that you're in the government. Ladies and gentlemen, I would begin from the audience if you have questions, because I know Mr. Sutt's time is rather limited, so not to take a chance from any one of you, please raise your hand if you have a question. If you don't, I have several, but go ahead, sir, and the microphone to the gentleman in the back row.
Yes, hello. My name is Magnus Torfason from the University of Iceland. You've been talking about kind of these global challenges to solving the energy sustainability crisis. what are your thoughts on kind of cross-national collaboration? I have some things in mind. So for example, in Iceland, we are quite blessed. We have a lot of energy, but we sometimes prefer to just be carbon neutral ourselves rather than exporting our energy to help Europe be carbon neutral. And at the same time, Europe is importing a lot of like carbon intensive products from China, exporting its own carbon footprint to China. Do you see any developments that kind of go towards addressing these issues, these cross-national issues, and everyone just trying to focus on their own rather than thinking about the global carbon environment, carbon footprint?
Yeah, thank you. There was a great initiative by the governments of the Baltic Sea, basically agreeing that we need to invest in offshore wind generation in the production capacity of 20 gigawatts, and this is offshore wind is also something what we in Estonia see as with a very high potential, and there has been also a decision in the government to speed up all the permitting process, which has been basically the biggest bottleneck. Obviously, to make this all work, we need connections. And connections, by definition, need to be cross-border. So if we can get moving here in the Baltic Sea, that would certainly be enormously beneficial for entire Europe, because the thing what we need the most is new production capacities in electricity. And on your point of importing high carbon intensity products from China, I think this is precisely where we see increasingly changing consumer expectations and preferences, and bringing the production closer to home, which also will reduce the carbon footprint.
Thank you very much. Any more questions from the audience? Raise your hand if you have any. If not, I will gladly take over for the next 7 minutes that Mr. Sutt has for us. Andres, Linnar mentioned that we are missing about 20 million IT engineers. Now, do you see that we're making any progress in fixing this issue that will probably drag down our digital ambitions?
The shortage of talent is a global challenge, and of course here, I think the key, what in my view we in Estonia need to strive for, and this is what we also did doing in the government, is sort of for a talent. The key point is the quality of life, and if we in Estonia can offer the ecosystem which is friendly for business, friendly for human, offers a great education, good connectivity, then we can certainly retain and attract the talent. There is, again, I mean, Estonia cannot supply 20 million IT talent globally. But there are a number of initiatives also in the private sector, which I actually value a lot, and where the government has also been supportive in helping. If we, for example, Code-Jõhvi, which is a coding school, purely at the initiative of the founders in Estonia, or if we take the Cleveron Academy, also the applied school in which has very, very tangible opportunities for a talent to study. So I think and the third point I think is probably the most important. Young people, regardless of age, but starting from the school, they need to have. We need to explain much better the opportunities, much better about what actually a new modern technology business offers, and then we can make it much more popular among the young people, so that they don't see manufacturing as something what is ugly, old-fashioned, and has no future. Modern manufacturing, where also IT talent is increasingly more needed because it's increasingly tech-heavy, is a clean, is technology heavy, and offers a lot of opportunities. So yes, we compete with the rest of the world in attracting the talent, but we also work here on how to get more people into the universities, into the applied schools, so that we have best opportunities for our businesses.
Will new technologies solve all challenges of society, looking at the multiple crises that we are living through?
Well, if a technology would be a solution for all the problems that mankind has, then probably all the problems would have been solved already. I think it starts from the mindset of each individual. Where do we see the world is heading, and what we each individually can do to make the world a better place. And then obviously a technology is an excellent tool to make this, to enable this journey to continue, but it certainly doesn't solve alone the problems of the world.
So how do you motivate people to make those smart choices and also to invest in green technology? What are the mechanisms that we can actually use?
For the technologies or for investment, many things have already become financially attractive or viable. I mentioned about the cost of unit cost of solar panels. So today it's not really can I afford it, or is it a meaningful investment to be made, but it's far more is a grid open to and capable in absorbing the PV. And then for a people, I think it's also the task of industry to promote, to educate. I think having at the schools as a mandatory part of curricula the entrepreneurial classes and explaining the financial literacy and all the related aspects. I think that goes also a long way in making the next generation better ready for the challenges and, more importantly, the opportunities we have globally.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sutt. If the audience doesn't have any important remarks or questions left, I can leave you to your busy calendar. I know you have other obligations coming up, and we have a lunch break coming up. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Andres Sutt.
Thank you very much.